Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. This is where we come, right and left, to try to be reasonable. And again, straight transparency. Release the Epstein files. All of them, as much as can be found. Tomorrow, the House votes to force the DOJ to release all of the Epstein files. I hear all the claims that, coming from the left now, this is for the victims. Let me point some things out for the record on the eve of the vote, okay? My BS detector has been going off about the Epstein case ever since I learned about it almost 20 years ago. It has never stopped. Not when the non-prosecution deal happened under Bush. Why would ASA Acosta, assistant, U.S. Attorney Acosta, give a deal like that to a guy with this scale of abuse? My detector went off when they explained that away without making any sense. My detector kept buzzing when Patel and Bongino and the Righty Pod bros resurrected this as part of the MAGA deep state attack. And that's where it came from. Selling that Epstein was murdered, and maybe this was about Pizzagate, the single stupidest conspiracy ever. Not when Trump picked Acosta, of all people, to be labor secretary. You ever Google this guy's pedigree? Not when Trump then picked the guys selling the hype about Epstein for positions where they could actually deliver, and then they totally flaked. They backed down from all the talk, despite MAGA releasing the files part of the campaign because of them. Not when AG Bondi just ghosted us on her imminent release of the client list. It's on my desk. Never explained, not until this very day. And not when the Democrats decided Epstein was worth front burner attention, despite the shutdown, the affordability crisis, and all of our insurance costs skyrocketing. I keep hearing from them, this is how they'll finally break Trump's spell over MAGA. Look, I think finding ways to lower their affordability issues, lowering prices, would do more than Epstein's emails, but we will see. However, even on tomorrow's vote, my detector is going. Let me say once more, I hope it's unanimous, I hope the Senate echoes it, and I hope no one tries to sneak anything in it before it passes, and I hope the president signs it. Trump was supposedly against the vote, but yesterday he endorsed it, and today he said he'll give Congress everything they have if it passes.
I'm all for it. We've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax.
Detector's still going off. Why do we need a vote? The president has near plenary or complete authority to declassify information and intelligence, even if it's of a national security matter. And if he can't, why is this about him anyway? Why won't the Attorney General and the head of the FBI do what they always talked about? This is why my BS detector was going off so loud when Patel refused to answer whether he had discussed with Bondi if Trump's name was in the files with the attorney, why he wouldn't answer it to Eric Swalwell. Now, social media was satisfied during that with Patel just fighting with Swalwell because that's what feeds the clickbait beast, and that's all that mattered. But why can't he and the Attorney General just release everything that they promised for the last few years? Why can't they even explain why they can't do that? I hope I'm wrong. Look, not just for the accountability, but I hate that the victims have been used in all this. If the victims and their families have been denied access to people who may have had knowledge of what Epstein did to them, and these people were in positions to have stopped him, these people deserve that transparency and information. I just don't understand how they don't already have it. There are problems even with this idea. The left is saying it's all about the victims. I don't buy it, okay? It wasn't about the victims wanting transparency and you wanting it for them during the Biden administration? Or before that, when only 2 of you ever asked about it? Oh, wait, hold on. The Maxwell investigation was still going on. We couldn't release anything. Who's going to believe that? So no other investigation could go on of other people at the same time that Ghislaine Maxwell was being investigated? Really? Anyone supposed to believe that? And now they're shifting it to the victims. The victims, they know the names in there. That's the new backstop. I don't like victims being played in this. Representative Thomas Massey is now saying victims' attorneys gave him 20 names of rich and powerful lawmakers and people of influence. Why doesn't he out them? Why doesn't he refer them for investigation? It doesn't make sense. It never has. And if the victims know others who are implicated, why didn't they put the names out? Why didn't they sue them? Or did they sue them and it's all settled? The FBI, all the attorneys in suits, multiple administrations desperate to attack one another, and nothing ever came out? Now victims are being encouraged to create their own list. Good. Create it. Great. Give it to me. Give it to us at NewsNation. But why hasn't that been done already? And look, I have a prediction, okay? Whatever is released, if this actually comes to fruition, and I hope it does, I actually hope that it doesn't get done this way and the Attorney General does what she said, okay, and the head of the FBI does what he promised, and they put it out. But whatever way it comes, it comes. Whatever comes will never be enough for some, in no small part because antagonists on both sides have been hyping this without basis. I can tell you right now that what the judges have sealed in the civil suits, not the criminal investigation, that will not be part of whatever they offer. Know that now. And I'm telling you, because once this thing comes out and they're playing with the crumbs, they're going to say, well, the real stuff is in those depositions from the civil suits. It's always been that way. It was sealed by judges. There wasn't any real fight to this point to get them unsealed. And that's where I think this is going to be headed. But I hope I'm wrong, all right? Now let's start piecing it together. The left is really pushing right now. I got literally it sent to me a dozen times this weekend. Did you see the emails between Jeffrey Epstein and his brother Mark? Did you see? It's proof that Epstein was covering and had stuff on Trump as his sex life. All right? Here's Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, joining us right now. Mark, I explained to people that you want to keep it on the phone because you're afraid of what's been done and threatened to you and your family. So I appreciate you sticking your head up to have this conversation.
That's okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Mark, just, easy suggestion. This back and forth with Jeffrey, where he tells you that Bannon is with him, and you say, oh, great, ask him if Putin still has photos of Donnie T, I'm assuming President Trump, with blowing, which we all know what that means, Bubba.
Let me stop you here. I'm not discussing that email. This is a private email between Jeffrey and myself. There's two brothers talking. It's nobody's business what we wrote. The only thing I responded to is because people got crazy with the Bubba reference and they tried to pin it on Clinton. So I made a public statement that it was not any reference to Bill Clinton. I like Bill Clinton, and I'm sorry for him that he had to go through that. But the email had nothing to do with Clinton, and that's my last word on that email. What I do want to talk about is I've been recently told the reason they're going to be releasing these things and the reason for the flip is that they're sanitizing these files. There's a facility in Winchester, Virginia, where they're scrubbing the files to take Republican names out of it. That's what I was told by a pretty good source. And my main focus.
Look, do you believe that? Do you believe? Hold on, Mark, hold on a second. Two things. One,
well, I believe that,
if you don't want to talk about it,
I don't have.
All right, obviously you believe it. You just said it, but all right. But Mark, hold on a second. Let me ask you a question.
Jeffrey did not commit suicide. That's my focus. I don't care about the files. Jeffrey's dead. So I don't care of the implications of the files. That's other people's problems. My brother did not commit suicide, and we're finding more information to prove that he didn't commit suicide. So the question becomes, who killed him? Well, who had him killed? I mean, Bill Barr is key to this cover. He's come up with so much bullshit, okay, and lies, demonstrable, provable lies, okay, that either he's covering it up or he's stupid. What?
All right. So one thing at a time. We've discussed the fact that you don't think your brother killed himself on the Chris Cuomo Project on my podcast. People can go check out that conversation. You know, the head of the FBI and his number two, both of who used to suggest exactly what you are, says now that they've looked at everything, there is no proof that it was anything but suicide. Kash Patel,
right there.
Dan
Stop
Bongino.
Right there. Stop right there. They didn't look at anything. There was never a homicide-capable investigation done. They called it a suicide early on to stop the investigation. If you read the DOJ report, it's all about the screw-ups in the jails. Cameras not working, guards not doing their job. It doesn't address the issue of the cause of his death. And it was misrepresented as a suicide because they didn't want to investigate. And more information.
So you're accusing the head of the FBI in this administration of a cover-up?
Absolutely. He said, he was the one who said in his testimony, you know it's suicide when you see one. I had to laugh. How many suicides has that jackass seen? Okay? He's not a doctor. He's not a pathologist. He never saw Jeffrey's body. He wasn't there, but he knows it's suicide.
Well, he's certainly changed his story about it. But I want to ask you one other thing, okay? And I get it. You don't want to talk about it. It was a private back and forth with your brother. Fine. But it is being used as proof that your brother had compromised information about Donald Trump. Is that what you are referring to, and is that what you suspect?
No, Jeffrey, in 2016, I said this publicly before, Jeffrey told me that if he said what he knew about the candidates, they'd have to cancel the election. He didn't tell me what he knew, but Jeffrey definitely had dirt on Trump. And you could see in the emails, Trump could deny it all he wants, but it's pretty clear. I mean, everything Trump says is a lie.
But that's not what you were talking about.
It's provable that he was in Jeffrey's office. He said he wasn't in the house. It's provable he was there. He said everything he says is a lie.
But that's not what you were talking about in the text thread. You don't know of any information that he had.
I'm not discussing that email.
Did you know or ever see any evidence that your brother had against Trump? Did you ever see any or hear any?
Just he told me he had it. He wouldn't tell me that if it wasn't true.
And how do you explain that it never came out and that Ghislaine Maxwell has never talked about it?
Well, yeah, she got a pretty sweet deal, you know.
She's in prison.
I'm not trying to hurt Ghislaine, but you know, one of the things I found interesting in her testimony is when she was asked about other people. You know, she said they were involved, they didn't do anything. But when she was asked about Trump, she went on at length about he was always a gentleman, he's always professional. And I said, why is he getting this special treatment of exoneration? And the other people, she just said, well, they didn't do anything. So, you know, even her lawyer said they cut the deal. So that's why I believe she said those things. Okay.
Did you know that your brother was talking to members of Congress during hearings?
No. Jeff and I didn't do business together. He didn't tell me those things.
Mark, I appreciate you giving your perspective. Thank you for doing it. And I understand you think it's a risk to you and the family. So thank you for taking the opportunity.
You're welcome. Good luck. I have to go. Thank you. Bye.
All right. That's the brother. For what it's worth, this back and forth that's being used as proof that Trump had something with some guy named Bubba, he was joking. All right. Now, let's bring in what is not a joke. Epstein was a monster, okay? And there is, to my understanding, if anything, an underestimate of how many people he hurt, all right? One of his survivors is Lisa Phillips. She now has a podcast that focuses on survivors of sexual abuse and, you know, to understand and empower and take control over what happened in their lives so that they can move forward. Now, I want to hear from her why these have to be released, what they want to come out, and what it means to them. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm glad you're getting traction and you're having success in getting people to talk about things in a way that empowers them instead of just putting a spotlight on what was done to them. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Lisa, help me understand from the perspective of your unfortunate community that was formed around this monster, the idea that, well, the survivors, they'll put together a victims list. What do you make of that suggestion? Is that fair?
Well, unfortunately, I don't believe it's an unfortunate community. We were brought together for a greater purpose. And yes, it's unfortunate what happened to us, but coming together, we start to realize what happened to us. We fill in the blanks, we connect the dots. Even just this evening, sitting with many survivors, listening to the stories of the new victims that have come forward, I mean, we just get chills because the stories are all the same. The MO is the same. Doesn't matter if you're 14 or you're 24. The MO is exactly the same. And I just don't want people to forget that it wasn't just Jeffrey abusing young women and teenagers. He was trafficking them out. And the reason why I created my podcast is for people to understand this was a trafficking ring. A new victim that I just talked to earlier today at dinner told me her story, which was very similar, eerily similar to my story. And after being groomed by Jeffrey for quite a while, then she was trafficked out to another very, very powerful person that was not from the U.S. And she was telling that story, and everyone at the table was like, okay, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to me.
First, Lisa, thank you for the qualification. You're right, the way you describe that the circumstances that brought you together is not what defines what you can do together. And I think that's an important distinction, so thank you.
Right.
The other question is, why haven't the names come out before now? Unless they've just been subject to civil suits that were settled so people can't say anything or won't say anything. You know, if you know that there are other people other than Epstein, other than Prince or former Prince, you know, whatever his name is, why haven't they come out? And why hasn't a list been put together already?
It's so hard to answer that question because a list has been put together for years. Our attorneys, survivors, we've named names for years. And when I said we'll release the list, it was just speaking to more survivors to get more names on the list. The same names keep coming up. The same names that we've given with our attorneys to the DOJ and the FBI is the same names they've always had. So we do want to help, but they already have had all the information they've needed to release for years now. And so to answer your question, I don't know why it's taken so long. I mean, isn't that the million-dollar question?
Look, I think so. I mean, you heard what I said off the top of the show. I've always wanted things released, and for the right reasons. I don't know that everybody involved has the same motivations. But why are you guys afraid to put out the names? The attorneys say don't?
Death threats. A lot of us are mothers. You know, we want the names to be out there. We want justice. But why do we have to do it? That's a very scary thing, and I think you know that. You know, it's just we want to help to put the names out there, but it's not our responsibility to do so. And I think you know why. I mean, so many people, so many of the survivors.
I get it. I just want you to tell people,
have received
Lisa,
many death threats.
I want you to tell people. I want you to tell people because, you know, based on what side you're on, and I know nobody should have a side when it comes to defending people who traffic women, young women especially, or any women, there are sides. So that's why I want you to articulate it, and you've done it perfectly, and thank you. I want to ask you something that they just sent me, okay? I just got a note that Larry Summers has said he's stepping back from any public commitments, deeply ashamed by Epstein revelations. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, in a statement Monday, said he would be stepping back from life and expressed deep regret for past messages with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. I'm deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they've caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. While continuing to fulfill my teaching obligations, I'm not going to go out in public anymore, basically, as part of my broader effort to rebuild trust and repair relationships with people closest to me. What does that mean to you?
Well, if it's true, I'm so grateful that he has empathy for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Survivors are well aware there are men that were in his orbit that didn't really know what was going on, the depravity of it. They didn't really know that when women were sent to their parties or functions, that they were sent by Jeffrey. They had other handlers that were handling things for them. We are well aware of that because we've talked about it. We do know of men like him that have had girls sent to him or girls around him, and they're not fully aware of what's going on. I just don't know who out of those is telling the truth and who's not telling the truth. But I am aware there are a lot of men who are in Jeffrey's orbit that were not aware of the sex trafficking ring. That's a fact.
It's interesting that you, as a survivor, are offering nuance that no one in politics ever has offered anyone. You've got the left saying that the whole Epstein class has to go. Anybody who knew anything, they all have to get accountability. And you know what the right used to say about the Clintons and Pizzagate and everything else. Why do you think you're able to have a more, I don't know what the right word is, but sympathetic view than the people who are pushing for the release?
I don't think it's a sympathetic view. I just think there's many, many layers to Jeffrey Epstein. I believe there's ones that were well aware of a sex trafficking ring and benefiting from it. Hey, have this girl. She goes into a room, has sex with you, and leaves. You know, and then there were ones that were just around him because he was a brilliant, intelligent person who back then had a good reputation, and there were just pretty young girls around. You know, so I do believe there are definite layers to it, and that's the problem right now, is figuring out who were the ones that are at the top of those layers and who were just the ones that were just the fluff around.
Well, can I ask you something? Can you, I mean, you're going to get a lot of opportunities, and you should, but can you keep us in mind, if this information comes out, we're going to need somebody who isn't just looking to skewer, you know, the other side or whoever they're going to run against next, and can say, this is what we understand about this person, this is what we don't, this is what I've heard, this is what I don't know, this is what they should be asked. I think it would be really helpful, and just in this interview, you know, your ability to rephrase what I'm asking you, to put it in the proper context of how you see it, is super helpful. And I really hope you get the opportunity to explore these layers that you lay out, and I'd be very privileged to do it with you here.
Okay, that would be great. We need people on our side like that. I really appreciate that.
Well, everybody's saying they're on your side. Let's just see what happens when information starts to come out and what they use it for and who it benefits and who it doesn't. At NewsNation, we'll be putting it out. We'll always be driving it.
We'll see in the next few days, right?
Right. We'll always be driving it through you guys, because you're advocating the only thing that should matter here, which is you and your families getting closure on who did this, who knew about it, who could have made it a difference. So we're here, and I wish you well until I see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa Phillips, thank you very much. 4 minutes, 35 seconds. So now you have the political side, okay? That's the legit side, right? That's someone, this affected her life, and she's done something beautiful with it, frankly, in terms of what she's creating through her podcast and her empowerment and her advocacy. And you heard Epstein's brother, that was not supposed to be some smoking gun to him about Donald Trump and some guy named Bubba. That takes us to the politics. That's where the hype has been in this. Now you got a fight within MAGA. This is why some on the left think this is it. MAGA's finally unraveling. Is it? Is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who used to be his darling, proof that that side of the party is breaking apart? There's another MAGA loyalist who has called for the files to be released and has famously feuded with MTG, by the way. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. What is her take on what this means to her and to the party? Next. Is Epstein going to break MAGA apart? Is that what we're supposed to draw from what's happening with the president and Marjorie Taylor Greene? First, she went against Trump on the government shutdown, saying that the subsidies matter. Then she was among the first 4 Republicans to sign the discharge petition to release all the Epstein files. MTG says she started to get death threats, tweeting President Trump's unwarranted and vicious attacks against me were a dog whistle to dangerous radicals that could lead to serious attacks on me and my family. He responded, wacky, Marjorie, traitor, whatever. I don't care what he said. Anyway, look, the point is, what does this mean for MAGA and the release and what's going on here? All right? I want to ask another person who has very much identified with the populist movement we know as MAGA. Representative Lauren Boebert, also pushing for the release of the files, also has had her own feuds with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Representative, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Representative, do you think the president has been an obstacle to the release of the Epstein files?
I think the president is correct in saying that this is a distraction. Certainly, I am a signer and I want these files released. I have spoke with my colleagues. I serve on the House Oversight Committee. I have spoke with the administration in wanting to get these files released. But the president is correct in saying that this is a distraction from everything that he is doing well and that the Democrats are doing poorly. They just shut down our government for more than 40 days, leaving tens of millions of Americans hungry, many without paychecks, endangering flights and reducing air traffic control, just causing chaos and frustration throughout our country. And now we were able to get the government reopened, and this is all anyone wants to talk about. Do I want the Epstein files released? Abso-freaking-lutely. That is why I was on the discharge petition. That is why I did not remove my name. And I'm going to vote in favor of releasing these files. But this is also not the only thing that we should be focused on at this time. I stand with the victims. I sympathize with them. I have had conversations with Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel in requesting that they personally meet with the victims who want to be heard by this administration. Certainly, they couldn't promise a meeting with the president, but they were eager, and they said they could come to us. We will go to them wherever they want to be. We want to have these conversations. And so, yes, this is important, but it's also not the only thing that we're working on.
Understood, although forgive my cynicism that I don't believe Congress can do two things at once, because we're lucky if we get you to do one thing at a time. But I think the president should want to take that meeting. Thank you. But help me understand. When you're talking, I mean, you're not known for being shy. When you're talking to the AG and to the head of the FBI, when you say release the files, we shouldn't have to vote on this. You both promised it. I mean, this all started with MAGA in its most recent iterations. It was Kash Patel and Bongino and all the pod bros. Remember those little files they gave out to all the righty podcasters? Here's volume 1. What do they say about why they won't put it out?
Yes, well, there was a lot of legal issues that were brought up and saying that they were prevented for legal reasons, whether it being liberal judges who have sealed cases or blocked the release. And I said, well, you're in luck. You have a lawmaker sitting at the table here, so let's go ahead and pass laws allowing you to actually obtain the information that you need. It was discussed that more subpoenas may be required to the estate to get more information. But right now, we do have a substantial amount of information. I do not believe that it is enough, but we are getting more details that are coming out all the time, including what should be the bombshell of the week and maybe the year, having Delegate Stacey Plaskett communicating with convicted Jeffrey Epstein during a judiciary hearing. President Trump in his first administration was the president who indicted and convicted Jeffrey Epstein. And we have delegates who serve on the Intelligence Committee who are communicating directly with Jeffrey Epstein. The timestamps have proven it, and are being coached on how to investigate President Trump further. She's also received campaign donations from him. So we are getting more information, and I hope that they are all held accountable. Even Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, when asked about Delegate Plaskett, he said, we want all predators to be held accountable. That was his response here. And you know what? If there are Republican names, I have never been afraid to call out anyone in my own party. I've often fought them more than the Democrats because it's usually good legislation that they're trying to prevent or good work and progress. And so I'm not afraid to call those things out. I've stood against former speakers, and I will continue to stand for what is right. But this is an issue that we certainly need to dig into. I believe that tomorrow, before or after, regardless, around the same time that we have a vote to release the Jeffrey Epstein files from the House of Representatives, we also need to have a censure resolution for Delegate Plaskett and have her removed from the Intelligence Committee. This is a gross breach of our ethics, and it is just unconscionable that a member of Congress who was communicating with this disgusting convicted felon is serving on the Intel Committee. You couldn't get a clearance like she has to sit there if you had that in your background, and neither could I.
Well, I look forward to it as part of the panoply of issues that will probably come up as you guys release this. Although I don't know how you can direct the ire anywhere past Kash Patel and Bondi and Bongino right now. I mean, nobody overpromised more than they. I get what you're saying about Plaskett, but to me, there's a lot lower fruit to attack. I want to just ask you one thing. What does MTG seeming to side against the president and want to go in a different direction mean as a reflection of MAGA? Do you believe that she is part of what may become a trend, or she is a one-off?
I don't believe that this is a MAGA split. Unfortunately, I certainly am not here to disparage Marjorie and cause a feud there. I have many other issues that I need to work on when it comes to my cattle ranchers and my farmers in the 4th District of Colorado. But certainly she and I have disagreed on subjects in the past. One major one was the speakership of Kevin McCarthy. You know, there were deals that were cut before those votes were made, and I wanted sensible rules that the House would abide by, like single subject legislation, individual appropriations bills, no CRs, no omnibus. And, you know, and this was something that she challenged me on and many others. And so there's just been a pattern of just kind of challenging common sense things. We all campaigned with President Trump for mass deportations. I had a bill that said build the wall, deport them all. And now I'm hearing that, you know, I have a Republican colleague who is opposing the deportations that are happening under this administration. And so it's not just one issue that she's been at odds with the president on. There have been many. And unfortunately, this was the one that he decided to come after her about. Again, I'm not here to say that Marjorie is wrong or indifferent, but I don't believe that she is the one who's going to tank MAGA. This is a very strong movement. I'm hearing from folks still all over that they are very proud that this is happening and also want us to do the work that we said that we would do.
Yeah, listen, I very much wish that tomorrow's vote was about affordability issues and about health care and tariffs and a lot of other things that are tearing the country apart in a way Epstein is not, or at least not yet. But Representative, you're always welcome here. It's good to have you on the show. I think it's your first time we've been together. You're always welcome here. And thank you very much for coming on to address this on an important eve.
Yes,
all right, be well. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. This weekend, Trump's crackdown on immigration that the representative was just talking about moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think it's an interesting question. Did people vote for the laws to be enforced and for people who are here illegally to be removed? Yes. But all of them in any way possible? I don't know. We're hearing reports that Border Patrol and ICE are going after the wrong hombres. Not just bad hombres. They reported 130 arrests. Did they get the right people? And did they do it the right way? Here's my first question. I'll give you a little bit of a hint to the Trump administration's border chief. Where's the data? Next. ICE went to Charlotte, North Carolina. Border Patrol and ICE agents are now working together. They report 130 arrests of illegal immigrants. But just like in Chicago, the agents are being accused of going after the wrong people. Now, wrong doesn't mean, or shouldn't just mean, oh, these people aren't illegal, they don't have final orders of removal. It's what kinds of people are they going after? This is video of them breaking a 46-year-old person's car in Honduras, later provided them his real ID, proving he's a U.S. citizen. So that was a mistake. So again, we have to ask, right operation, wrong execution. Let's ask this administration's Border Patrol Chief, Mike Banks. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Look, I say it every time. I've worked with CBP a ton. I have a lot of respect for the men and women who do that show. They have more of a connection to the areas and situations they're policing than a lot of law enforcement does. But the first thing you guys could do that will make this a lot easier to analyze is put out your data. We're always like hearing how many arrests and what kinds of people, but we never get to see it. We don't get to see the jackets. We don't get to see the proof. Why not?
Well, just like with any investigation, right? People have the right to the presumption of innocent until found guilty, and so putting out that information would put the individuals at disadvantage both in court and in the court of public opinion.
Fair point. However, if what you're doing is what Tom Homan tells me all the time, which is these people have final orders of removal, that's why they're on the list, then this isn't about questioning their right to due process. It's about why they had an order of final removal and why they were on your list. Why isn't that data you could put out?
So, we'll get with ICE. This is ICE's data because we're making the arrest and assisting our agencies. But I will tell you this. The United States Border Patrol targets criminal illegal aliens, but you have to understand that if you target criminal illegal aliens, you're going to come across people that are just in this country illegally because criminal illegal aliens prey on the illegal alien community. And just like any other police officer or any other law enforcement officer, if we see someone that's in this country illegally while searching for criminal illegal aliens, we have an oath and an obligation to make that arrest and put that person into the process.
Understood. How do you explain them bashing the window of a citizen?
And so, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And are citizens arrested by United States Border Patrol? Yes, daily, often for impeding, interfering, assaulting. And so there's a lot of reasons why individuals are arrested. This individual, my understanding is based on the information on this case, this individual was not the owner of the vehicle. The owner of the vehicle, which very closely matched the appearance of this individual, was in this country illegally with a final order of deportation and a criminal record.
So the owner of the vehicle had one. This guy had a real ID on him. So what happens now?
Right. So in this case, the individual would be released, and we would provide him with documentation so that he could have his windshield repaired.
Now, we keep hearing reports like this. Do you believe that there's hyper enforcement going on and that people are a little overzealous out there trying to catch people?
So I do not believe that. And I'll give you a perfect example. Multiple arrests that were made over Charlotte over the last couple of days are all individuals that had extensive criminal history. And I can go down the list of a few of them if you'd like. These individuals were already in custody for things such as armed robbery, murder, selling of the drugs, and they're released into the city by these sanctuary cities and not turned over. If we really want to make the streets safer, what we need to do is focus on, once we have someone in custody that is a violent criminal or a criminal, simply turning them over to immigration would prevent us from having to go out into the streets and make that rearrest. Anytime you have to make an arrest, it puts both the law enforcement officers and the public in danger. And so if the so-called sanctuary cities were worried about simply just those in this country illegally versus those that have committed criminal acts since they've been in the city, they would work with us to get these criminal aliens off the streets. Understood. Or not return them to the streets, which would see a lot less of this. When we talk about being hyperactive, you also got to understand that our agents are under extreme amount of threats from the community. 8,000% increase on threats against our agents, 1,000% increase in actual assaults on agents, all being perpetrated by misinformation.
I understand. That's why we try to keep it straight here. And anybody who's using violence against law enforcement is going to get what they're looking for. I'm just saying, if you could pass it up the line, the more data comes out, the better it'll be for giving a fair analysis. Mike Banks, Border Patrol Chief, thank you for being with us. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, Dusty, let's get somebody to swing at my head.
Susie, go. Kansas City.
Susie, what's your question?
Yeah, Chris. Are you really that naive that you don't think Trump's involved in all this?
I know Trump's involved. He knew him. I know Trump's involved. These are his AG and his FBI that won't release them. I know the president is involved. The question is how and what does it mean to you? You want me to say, or you may believe that he's like a sex criminal or something like that, and that's how he's involved. That I don't know. And what I would warn you about is there's been so much BS sold about what is true here that has never been shown. Okay? Not during the Acosta phase, not during the MAGA phase, and now not during what the Democrats want. We'll see what happens when they release the file. I'll tell you who I believe. I believe the survivor. Why? Because she's been talking to all these different women who have similar stories and have been using the same names of who they thought knew, who they got sent to, and I'm putting that in quotes, right? Because as she very eloquently, and I believe generously, I said sympathetic, but I should have said generous assessment that she made about nuance here, that not everybody who got someone sent to them understood it the same way. I thought that was very generous. But let's release the files. Let's look at it. But you better prepare yourself for reasonable expectations. We'll be right back. The eve of a very important vote. Leland Vittert sets the table right now.
You think it's that important?
I do. Too much hype on both sides. People are going to want to comb through this. You and I are going to have to do this for a long time. One side believes they're going to get proof that the president was involved with Epstein in a very, very prurient way. And the other side is now pretending it doesn't exist. But I guarantee you they'll come up with their own allegations.